Extra time.
Hello and welcome back to the Extra Time podcast. Now, Pat still isn't here. We're actually no idea where he is. So in the meantime, it's been left to me to present once more. But luckily, I'm joined this week by my friend over at Eurofootball Daily, Dougie Critchley. Dougie, how are you doing, my friend? What a weekend of football and action.
Yeah, we're not quite sure whether Pat is with baby or without baby yet, but yeah, what a weekend. I'm sure he didn't manage to watch it on the hospital ward. It was all kicking off across Europe, the FA Cup, Alisson's last minute winner, Dortmund securing Champions League football, lots of drama in La Liga. It was a really great and emotional weekend of football, I think. Those scenes at the end of Leicester City's victory with their owner, and then Alisson, that post-match interview as well. It was a draining weekend, but one that makes you feel, warms the soul, really. So, no, I'm pleased to be on the podcast with you. How are you doing, Henry?
Yes, I'd love to hear that. I am well. I was just saying to you, I think this is the first FA Cup final in years, which my whole family kind of sat down and watched the whole build-up. I was just quite invested in it. There's no reason for me to be, really, in this one. But like you said, all the celebrations at the end. Kasper Schmeichel, what a hero.
Yeah.
Him and Vards are going to go down as Premier League legends. I was upset, as you well know, that Lille couldn't quite find that winner against St Etienne the weekend. That was gutting. I don't know if you saw the last 5 minutes are absolutely wild on that one.
I haven't caught up with it yet. I'm looking forward to. It's disappointing, but they still, it's still in their grasp.
Yes, it is all happening across Europe. Anyway, we thought this week for the Extra Time pods, we would look at something like the actual transfer rumours that have been taking place. Certainly the big clubs in the UK. You've got Manchester United needing a new centre-back, Leicester needing a new striker, and obviously some more striker talk at the end. So we thought we'd look at the big contenders we see over and over again in the rumour mills and actually run through who we think would be the best fit to sort of take up these vacancies at these clubs available. And because I think, Dougie, we both agree, these transfers do look like they could happen, at least one of these in these clubs. And we can start with Manchester United. Their transfer business always seems to be publicised because there are a whole list of names that every week seems to be updated, different players being linked there. I think Amad Diallo is one of the only players they've really snuck in under the radar and got in before sort of all the news knew about it. But with their centre-backs, we're seeing Jules Koundé being linked with them from Sevilla, seeing Sven Botman, even Kalidou Koulibaly. His name has entered the fray at the moment. But Dougie, the one who I personally am probably most excited about, or intrigued about anyway, is Pau Torres from Villarreal. What do you think of this guy, and could he be the man for United?
Yeah, I think it's probably the most realistic one. I think Jules Koundé will be too expensive. I can't really see Real Madrid getting rid of Raphael Varane this summer if they're going to lose Sergio Ramos as well. That seems like shooting yourself in the foot from Florentino Perez, and he hasn't really been known to do that too much in terms of outgoings from the club. At least they've kept hold of players for too long, and they've bought in the wrong players as well. But in terms of experienced players, they've sold a lot of youth, but they wouldn't sell Raphael Varane. I think he's being sort of geared up to be their captain, so I'd be very surprised if he left the Bernabeu this summer. Kalidou Koulibaly, probably a bit over the hill now. Had a lot of injury issues this year at Napoli as well. I think he'll cost at least 50-60 million pounds. So, yeah, wouldn't be the one for me as well. But Pau Torres is really interesting. He's 24 years old. He's left-footed, which I think is crucial for Man United going forward. So that will allow Harry Maguire to move from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, where he should be even more capable of bringing the ball out defence. He's been excellent on the left-hand side with Lindelof on the right. But, Maguire on the right-hand side, I think, is a very tantalising prospect for Solskjaer. And Pau Torres has kind of got it all. He's very elegant. He's 6'3". He's reasonably good in the air. I mean, I haven't watched that many full 90s of him in La Liga this year. And one of the only times I did, they got absolutely thrashed by Barcelona on the opening day. But his partnership with Raul Albiol has kept Villarreal in the hunt for European football this year. I think they're in 7th now. They beat Sevilla 4-0 at the weekend, who were down to 10 men as well. But Pau Torres feels like he's probably the most achievable of the options, especially if Man United beat them in the Europa League final. So obviously they'll get a first-hand look at him. Because if they don't have European football next year, then it'll be difficult to keep a hold of Pau Torres. But yeah, there's varying reports about how much it would cost as well. There was talks about 54 million euros last month, but Gazzetta dello Sport are now claiming that's down to 26 million pounds, which does seem exceptionally low. So I'd be surprised if it was that low, but between 30 and 50 million pounds I think is achievable. He spent his entire career at Villarreal except for a loan spell at Malaga in 2018-19. He's made over 80 appearances for the first team. He's very composed on the ball. He's got an 88% pass accuracy this season. Very good at breaking the lines with his incisive passing as well. Tackle and interception numbers, I should say, are quite low, which I think suggests that Raul Albiol is the sort of more front foot defender in that backline, which is fine as well, because you probably want Harry Maguire being the more front foot defender as well, and then Pau Torres sort of sweeping up behind, using his pace to cover across as well. Very rarely commits fouls as well. Puts off roughly 1 block per 90 as well. Dribble pass just 0.2 times per game. So these are really promising numbers. And it feels like the time is right for Pau Torres to take that step forward. And if it wasn't for Aymeric Laporte being nailed down to start for Spain now this summer's Euros, I imagine, now he's changed nationality, which we got the news of last week, I think Pau Torres would have probably started at centre-back this summer alongside Sergio Ramos, because Gerard Piqué had such a bad year this year alongside Clement Lenglet at Barcelona, who's also had a pretty chastening time as well. So Pau Torres to Man United I think makes the right sense. He's the right age. I think he's reasonably affordable, and he should be quite gettable as well if Villarreal miss out on European football. So I'm all behind this one.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about his aerial things. For me personally, that's where maybe he's let down a little bit, because that's the kind of thing when you watch Lindelof, it's that what he's really lacking is that real presence and dominance in the air. But I think what Pau Torres does seem to have on him is an element of concentration and sort of composure, which I think certainly Lindelof could improve on. But yeah, the Spain squad, that'd be a really interesting one. I'm really excited to see, on a slight tangent, what Spain do at this tournament. I think it's almost like a free hit for them in terms of their talent, which they've got available to them, especially if you look at Ferran Torres this weekend, his hat-trick that he scored for City recently. Yeah, I mean, really amazing flick for that first one, certainly. So I'm excited to see what they do there. You're right, Pau Torres, one to watch at the Euros, and it could be really interesting to see if United do go in for him. 26 million pounds does seem exceptionally cheap. Just to quickly touch on Raphael Varane. So obviously the contract is still rumbling over whether or not he will extend. But it's interesting what you say about Madrid's basically not really entertaining the idea of him leaving, because the reports claim that they're still wanting about 60 million pounds for him. If you consider his current deal expires next term, that is a substantial fee. Dario AS claims United have approached them with a 41 million pound offer recently, but that's just not enough. And apparently Chelsea might be entering the mix as well there. And they're willing, as they showed last summer, when they want to play, they're willing to spend big for him. So we'll have to wait and see. But it's the consistency at which Varane has appeared for Real Madrid is pretty astounding, isn't it? I mean, there's no surprise really when it's 60 million pounds. If you look at all the sort of trophies he's got, 3 La Liga titles, 4 Champions Leagues, obviously won the World Cup with France there. He's made 359 appearances for Real Madrid across 10 seasons. He's only 28 as well, so a year younger than Koulibaly. He feels a lot more junior compared to Koulibaly, in my opinion. But yeah, with David Alaba going there as well to Real Madrid, it's certainly sort of shaking the nest there. But I mean, for me, Varane is the best defender available. If you look at kind of his statistics, 3.7 clearances and 2.3 aerial wins. So he's stronger in the air than Torres, stronger in the air certainly than Lindelof. 0.7 tackles, but bear in mind that Real Madrid are pretty much the offensive team in La Liga this term as well. With 1.2 interceptions per game. So he's very composed once again, doesn't dive in. Always thought he looks exceptionally like a class defender. And sort of when you went from the madness of Pepe at centre-back for Real Madrid into Varane, I quite like that composure. I think Varane maybe epitomised what the Galacticos was meant to be about, as opposed to Pepe, who just sort of is maybe what they should have had a bit more of over the years. But yeah, I mean, do you think any side going to spend 60 million, that'd be worth it for Varane? Do you think is it a realistic price tag for him, or should people be going lower for him?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good price for him. I think that's a fair price from Real Madrid to sell him for, given his contract situation as well. I just can't see it happening. I just don't know why Real Madrid would bring in this massive new signing in David Alaba to pair him with Raphael Varane and then get rid of Varane in the same summer that they're losing Sergio Ramos. You know, the bedrock of that defence for, you know, since about 2005, 2006. So it just doesn't really make any sense to me unless they've got big plans for Eder Militao next term. He's obviously showed some renewed form recently. I think Nacho's been a very solid performer for them for a number of years, and maybe they're planning another centre-back signing. But for me, I just don't think it makes sense from Real Madrid. But if Man United could get Raphael Varane, that's an excellent signing.
Yeah, just quickly, you know, the other day on Continental Club, I floated the idea of Sergio Ramos to PSG. And since then, I feel like it's gained a little bit more traction, you know. Pochettino, the press, he's a good player, whatever. Is that a move you think you could see happening? Is Ramos to PSG?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think that's kind of that's the most likely destination for me for Sergio Ramos. I can't see him coming to the Premier League. I think PSG, with the money they're able to offer, you know, he'd be an excellent signing for a year or two, because Kimpembe's made, you know, seems to be coming along nicely, but has made some rash decisions in the last few weeks. He got sent off the weekend before this one, made a horror tackle towards the end of the game against Man City as well, slightly losing his head. And Marquinhos, you know, to play alongside Marquinhos, who's been phenomenal for a number of years, whether in defensive midfield or centre-back, Sergio Ramos and Marquinhos, it'd be a beautiful pairing for a year or two.
Yeah, love that. Completely agree. All right, if we get back to Manchester United quickly, because the other name which has entered their endless transfer rumour mill this week is Sven Botman. Now, we're both big fans of this guy. I thought he was linked with Liverpool a lot. I mean, that looked like where he was going to go, but they've obviously moved, it seems, for Ibrahim Konate from RB Leipzig, which leaves Botman maybe having to look elsewhere. It does look like Lille will sell him, and this is what he said when sort of approached about it on recent transfer speculation. He said, "I'm lying if I say it's not interesting me. It's the first time such big clubs are linked to me, but it's early days because in January I was only at Lille for half a season." So he certainly floated the idea in his mind. They bought him for £8 million last year. Look, could be another excellent fine and turnover by Luis Campos, the sporting director, who's gaining a lot of traction and heat in the news right now. I think we're looking at about to release something on him as well, so stay tuned for that. And there's good reason why these clubs like Sven Botman. 2.4 tackles and interceptions per game, 3.2 clearances, and only dribbled past 0.3 times per match. Lille have got the best defensive record in France, 22 goals conceded all season. He has been certainly a linchpin within that next to Jose Font as well. So I quite like that partnership with Font, and I think he'd therefore work quite well next to someone like Maguire, who is quite clearly the leader in that back line. Very strong in the air as well, 3.3 aerial dual wins. That tends to be why Lille have been so successful this year, because they sort of plough the opposition out to the wings. They concentrate them out there. They're not bothered about the opposition having possession in that area. Let them cross in, then Font and Botman just consistently get it away, or Mike Magnon comes and claims there. So that's really what's been the strength of the Lille defence this season. You know, looking at Botman once more, 86.7% passing accuracy. I think he's a class outlet. I can't believe Ajax sold him almost for £8 million. It seems kind of outrageous, really. The asking price is interesting. You look at different articles and different people are suggesting different things. 39 to 45 million pounds. I reckon, Dougie, that is pretty reasonable for someone of Botman's calibre. Because I think you and I both agreed that the big money market this year, certainly for defenders, is a little bit warped. I think this is the price point at which clubs will be looking to operate if they are going to go big. So yeah, what do you think of Botman for roughly £40 million?
Yeah, I think that's great given his age and trajectory. I just slightly concerned about, you know, he's only had one season of playing regularly in a top 5 league. Maybe it'd be a step too soon for Botman to go to Man United, where, you know, every defeat is an explosion of drama. You know, the amount of focus on Man United. I think, you know, there's only one more club that's more dramatic when they lose, and that's Arsenal, which just goes into meltdown every time there's a defeat. Yeah. But Sven Botman has been excellent this year. So you're so right pointing out his aerial dual success rate as well. as you say, very comfortable with the ball in wide areas, and he's just so dominant in the air and plays on the left-hand side as well. So Maguire could switch to the right, which I was talking about with Pau Torres as well. Very comfortable on the ball. I think Ajax did make a slight mistake in selling him last summer, but then I think they really back Per Schuurs as the future of their central defence. They've still got Lisandro Martinez as well, who couples well with Per Schuurs because Schuurs is so massive. And Lisandro Martinez is a potential look at for a lot of clubs looking for a confident ball-playing defender as well. So, yeah, Sven Botman seems to be on a very good trajectory. I just think it might be a year too soon for him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think certainly Lille will be a Champions League football team next year. I think they should maybe stay. And although Lille are a selling club, I'd like to see them hold on to a few of their stars. All right, Dougie, if I had to push you for one of these signings, Varane, Botman or Pau Torres, or maybe Jules Koundé, I'll let you throw him in there, but I agree with you. I think they're asking for something silly, about £65 million, which really isn't the one. If I had to push you for one of these centre-backs, who would it be?
I mean, if you get the chance to sign Raphael Varane, I think he's the obvious shout, definitely. But I think the most achievable and the one I can see happening, given the price tags involved, etc., given the state of Villarreal, I'd go for Pau Torres. I think he's got a great future ahead of him. Yeah,
you know what? I completely agree with you. If you look at some United centre-back signings, Bailly, Lindelof, okay, these are kind of developing players, and okay, they paid sub 40 million for both of them, but it's not combined, it's well over sort of 70, which that is a waste of money. Maybe you do go for someone like Varane, who's just got that experienced head, got no nonsense. You know what you're getting when you sign him. I agree, that would be excellent. But yeah, Pau Torres out of him and Botman for me too. All right, let's look at Leicester City, our new FA Cup winners. First time, congratulations to them. That was so awesome, as we discussed in the intro. And what I think is really interesting about Leicester is this could be such a huge transfer window for them, because I think the opportunity is there for a club like Leicester to go out and sign maybe 4 or 5 players that will cement that side, certainly pushing for Champions League every year, because I don't think that the market's going to be there for players to come in, for City to come in and maybe steal some of their players like Ndidi. I think Fofana, I don't think he's going to be going anywhere. So whereas in years gone by, they've had to maybe reboot a little bit with Maguire and Chilwell leaving. This season, this summer, I've got a really positive feeling about Leicester's business in the market. It already looks like they've snapped up Boubakary Soumaré from Lille for less than £30 million, which anyone that knows about this guy, that is a steal. I think, do you remember Newcastle kept trying to buy him for about 40 million? And he kept saying no. I mean, I think fair enough. Fair enough to Soumaré. Yeah, I think they even dropped him for a bit as a result of that. But yeah, fair enough for him for holding out for something a bit more. But he's the most progressive passer at Lille. He's box to box. The idea of him next to Ndidi is pretty tasty, I think, as a central sort of midfield pivot there. But the next position which I think they really need to improve is in the striker position. Jamie Vardy does look a little bit tired at the moment. 2 goals in his last 24 games, and Iheanacho sort of flutters in and out of form. Obviously played brilliantly recently, but he was pretty shocking in the FA Cup final, I thought. Let's start with one of their 3 main candidates that we see constantly linked with that position, Tammy Abraham. Dougie, what is your take on the whole Tammy Abraham situation? Because it is pretty strange what's going on with him right now.
Yeah, big time. I'm pretty concerned, to be honest. I mean, last year, under Frank Lampard, he was, regular in the side, scoring a lot of goals, getting England recognition as well, scoring for England as well. Now, he's distant third choice at Chelsea, not even in the squad for the FA Cup final at the weekend. Barely had a look in since Thomas Tuchel came in. And it feels like Thomas Tuchel has been reasonably good at rotating his squad. He seems to have given everyone a chance, but Tammy Abraham has barely featured except for in the FA Cup, and then they get to the FA Cup final, not even in the squad. And if I was Tammy Abraham, I'd 100% be looking to leave this summer. It feels like Chelsea continually linked with a striker. Timo Werner's obviously not going to go anywhere. Maybe they'll get rid of Olivier Giroud as well, but Tammy Abraham needs to be playing regularly at the age he's at. And it's strange because he's still Chelsea's overall top goal scorer this season, with 6 in the Premier League and 12 in all competitions, which just goes to show, how poor Chelsea have been in front of goal. And I feel like Timo Werner has been excellent sort of in every category except for goal scoring, and I feel like he will come good. I feel like his off the ball running's really improved. I feel like his general play, his passing, his team sort of play, if that makes sense, has got so much better in the last few months, but still not putting the ball in the back of the net. And, Tammy Abraham does kind of have that record. He's got 30 goals in 82 games for Chelsea, which is not to be sniffed at, and 90 in 209 as a pro, which is a pretty excellent record, obviously, although 48 of those goals did come in the Championship for Bristol City and Aston Villa. Apparently, he's going to cost anyone this summer £40 million. That's according to Fabrizio Romano, who say that not only Leicester City, but his former club Aston Villa are interested in him too. And what Tammy Abraham is there's some sort of misconceived ideas about what he is and what he's good at. So he's obviously very tall, but he's not actually particularly good in the air. And I think he runs the channels very well, but it's really where he comes into his own is in the box. He makes very good late runs in and around the posts. He's a very good, anticipator of where the ball is going to land, etc. Doesn't do a whole lot of work outside the penalty box, but that's the case for a lot of great strikers. Some great strikers have made their entire career out of that. I mean, look at Pippo Inzaghi at AC Milan and Juventus for one example. And his stats are pretty promising as well. 2.8 shots per 90, 1.3 on target per 90, and 0.46 goals per shot. And I think he's got one of the highest non-penalty XG per 90 rates in the Premier League. So that scoring record for Chelsea, considering he's rarely taken penalties, if at all, is really pretty impressive. His average goal distance, just to back up what I was saying, is 9.7 yards. And he also, averages 2 shot creating actions per 90 as well, which has dropped slightly to 1.5 this term. So he's not necessarily the best all-round striker in terms of his creativity or his dribble numbers per se, but in the box he's definitely getting a lot better, and his goal scoring record is not to be sniffed at. And I feel like with Kelechi Iheanacho, there was a bit of a misunderstanding when he was at Man City that he was a penalty box predator as well. But I was reading a sort of background to him the other week on, I can't remember what site it was, I would give them credit if I could, but they were saying that in Nigeria when he came through he was much more of a number 10, and we've seen that recently. It's been Kelechi Iheanacho that's been dropping deep to link the play in the absence of James Maddison, without James Maddison having featured that much in the last 2-3 months, and Vardy's been the point man. So I feel like Tammy Abraham to swap in with Jamie Vardy at points this year, who, although he has, his goal scoring record has dropped dramatically, I would never want to write off Jamie Vardy. I feel like his record over the last few years, he goes in peaks and troughs. He's not been as consistent this season as in previous years, but he's still a great goal scorer and a great player to have around your squad as well. So Tammy Abraham for £40 million would be an absolute steal for Leicester City, given his trajectory and given where he's going in his career, because I think he's going to be, in and around the best strikers in the Premier League in the next 2-3 years, and then just continue on that journey. He does need to get better in certain areas, but for where he is at this stage, I think he's very promising.
I think he's a great striker, and actually he's got some serious goals. I disagree with you a little bit. For me,
you're not a fan.
For me, he's not elite. I don't think he is.
Really?
I just worry. I certainly think he's deserved more game time this year, with everything that you said to do with Timo Werner's goal scoring record. But I always just get the sense, you look at someone like Giroud. Giroud just looks much more complete as a player and stuff like that, and I'm not surprised that Abraham sort of even fallen behind Giroud in the rankings there. You're right, he is young. I'd say 10 million less, maybe 32 million, 30 million for me, then yes, that's a good one to go. But I'm not as sold on Tammy Abraham. Maybe everyone get in the comments below what you think, whether or not you think Tammy Abraham really is the real deal. I don't think he's certainly one of the best English strikers. Dominic Calvert-Lewin for me is a better forward than Tammy Abraham at the moment, but that's just my opinion.
Probably all round. So, I'd agree with that for sure. I just feel like, Chelsea would be sort of remiss to not sell him for £30 million if an offer comes in this year as well, because they obviously spent so much last window. They've still got summer plans this window, and they didn't manage to recoup that much cash last year as well. So I think the likes of Ross Barkley, Tammy Abraham, if they get combined sort of £45 million for the two of them, that's pretty easy money for squad players. But I really like Tammy Abraham. But I'm interested to hear what the people in the comments say.
Yeah, all right. Let us know your thoughts. The other name linked with Leicester, and it could be a bit of a cut price deal actually, is Odsonne Edouard over at Celtic. His contract expires in 2022. He cost them about £9 million from PSG back in 2018. But recent reports claim he could be available for about 15 million, the 15 to 20 million mark, because of that expiring contract, which suddenly makes him a really interesting proposition. Still incredibly young. That's 23 in and around the French under-21 squad still. I think we've discussed him a little bit on Continental Club recently. But obviously, big goal scorer in the Scottish Premier League. 18 goals this season with 22 in all competitions. He scored 74 in 139 for the boys. 4.3 shots per 90. Scores of 1 in 4 efforts on goal. Compared to certainly Tammy Abraham, what he's having to operate in the Premier League, it is obviously going to be easier for Edouard to have sort of an inflated goal scoring record due to the nature of opposition in Scotland. But you still can't take anything away from sort of his clinical nature in front of goal. As we said, he can score left foot, right foot, loves dropping to drive in a bit like what you're just saying with Iheanacho there. A few similarities there. So I like that. Knows how to play with Brendan Rodgers. If he is available for sub £20 million, I think Odsonne Edouard it's a no-brainer in my opinion. I think at least get him in. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You're not going to make an incredible loss on him. But still, if you look at the success of the other players that have gone out and left Celtic, I don't think it's any different for Edouard. If he is available for that kind of money, he'll certainly, in my opinion, want to join Leicester at this point over someone like Arsenal, who is the other team said to be sort of chasing him. Do you think that Edouard could cut it in the Prem?
Yeah, I do. I think he's been far too good for the Scottish Premier League for quite a while now. He's been an outstanding player there prior to this season for quite a while, and I think Celtic probably made a mistake in not selling him last summer because his form did dip quite severely at points this season, and it's just been a disastrous campaign for Celtic, really. They had that run-in with the Scottish government over COVID. They finished 25 points behind Rangers. I think they've dropped points in 15 of their 38 games this season. Rangers have obviously gone unbeaten. Completely deserved the win as well. And now, they're struggling to replace Neil Lennon. It still hasn't been announced yet. We're expecting Eddie Howe, but still hasn't been announced as of Monday, the 17th of May. Their chief executive, Peter Lawwell, is leaving this summer as well. He's been there since the Martin O'Neill days. And now Odsonne Edouard is leaving as well. So it's a bit of a disaster for Celtic. I don't really know where they go from here. They'll still be in the top 2 next year. They'll probably finish second, but we'll see. It's a hell of a rebuild needed at Celtic. But go over to Chris Hamill's channel for more Celtic-related content. But yeah, Odsonne Edouard for £15 million. Probably, I agree with you. At half the price of Tammy Abraham might be a more sensible option. He probably doesn't have the. He's more of an all-round forward than a target man, which is. Tammy Abraham does have that physicality that maybe Odsonne Edouard slightly lacks, and would play more as a 9, whereas Odsonne Edouard seems to be able to play as a 10 as well, which would be where Kelechi and Iheanacho plays as well. So there's certain things to consider, but I certainly wouldn't sniff at Odsonne Edouard for £15 million. I totally agree with you. He's got to go to Leicester City over Arsenal.
Yeah. Like you said about Hamill's channel, apparently Henrik Larsson's son. That's who he's trying to
He's just trying to relive the glory days, yeah.
That is true. All right. What I like about the 3 options that we've got linked here is they've all got completely different stories, if you know what I mean, and come from different kind of circumstances in terms of the leagues they're playing. Because the next option is Ivan Toney. Obviously discussed him last week on the podcast a little bit, but I love this player. 31 goals this season in the Championship, a new record, ousting Glenn Murray, which is a shame. I feel like people like Glenn Murray, that's what they live for, these little records. And if you want to see a great interview, go check out what Sam Obasekin's actually lad. They spoke with him last week in an extra time special, so please go check that out. Really great interview there. 25 years old. Rumours linking him with Chelsea now. And I've seen his price tag balloon to about £35 million, apparently. Bear in mind, he only cost Peterborough an initial £5 million. That could rise a little bit, but that just seems... Brentford from Peterborough. That just seems an incredible piece of business. And we'll see him... This is obviously will be coming out tomorrow. He'll be playing in the Championship playoffs tonight, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on there. What do you think of Toney? Because I love this guy. He's obviously scored quite a few penalties this season, 9. But beyond that, he is a kind of predator in the box. And this is where I think he could be really interesting for Leicester, certainly. Especially with his ability to assist. He's got 10 assists this term. I love the idea of him linking up with Harvey Barnes when he comes back, and Iheanacho, 1 key pass per game. He passes the ball on average more than the previous 2 players that I've mentioned. So he is more involved in the play. And this is why I think he could be a really interesting proposition for Leicester. Knows how to break the lines, get into the positions, a bit like Jamie Vardy. So yeah, what do you think of Tony? Do you think that he is ready for the Premier League, and is Leicester potentially plays? Because that would be a significant jump to Champions League football from Brentford.
Yeah, it'd be a real step up. But I've got some breaking news for you, because I got a DM last week from a Football Daily fan who said he was already going to Chelsea. It was sewn up. Something like his mate's mother's cousin worked at TalkSport, and it was already sewn up. So that's it, done. So we'll see whether that happens. I will give a shout out publicly. You know, if Ivan Toney ends up at Chelsea, you know, fair play to that guy who sent me the DM. I won't out him right now, but we will see whether that materialises. But yeah, I find it quite upsetting, Ivan Toney's success at Brentford, because he was linked with Sunderland when he was at Peterborough, and we couldn't get him over the line. And now he's at Brentford, and he's become this absolutely superstar player. And Sunderland are instead, you know, taking on Lincoln tonight in the playoffs in the semi-finals with, you know, a not that great chance of going up, you know, with my pessimistic hat on. So yeah, I'm all for Ivan Toney. Well done to him, but I'm just very jealous, really.
Dougie, don't worry. Next year we could both be in the Championship and, you know, have our own little platform to talk about.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
What an exciting proposition that is. I love that Chelsea rumour. It's almost like on our transfer talks we will feature ourselves as the breaking story, if that makes sense. So I like that kind of Matrix-esque level of reporting. But yeah, Ivan Toney. Obviously Leicester haven't secured Champions League football yet, but fingers crossed they do, because I think they really deserve it. And it'll be interesting to see what happens to Chelsea. All right, out of those 3 then, Abraham, Edouard and Toney, who are you pumping for?
Oh, price dependent. If it's £30 million, I'm going Tammy Abraham. But if it's 40, I'm going Odsonne Edouard. But I do really rate Tammy Abraham, and I feel like he's the slightly forgotten man of this year at Chelsea. Still got a great goal scoring record. Yeah,
I should say, I still think Abraham is a great striker. Maybe it just needs to step down away from Chelsea. But I agree, Edouard, why not? Let's see what he can do in the Premier League under Brendan Rodgers. All right, so we'll finish on the other kind of big story. As we were saying, like the big markets transfers, it's hard to see how many will actually happen this year. There's only about 8 or 9 clubs that can really go that big in the market, and that's sort of excluding Spain, really. Nonetheless, City and Chelsea, Manchester City, they both look like they will be needing a new striker. I'm not sold on Timo Werner as a finisher. Obviously looks completely devoid of confidence, but a lot of people seem to forget that the way that Leipzig played is completely different to Chelsea. He's asking to sort of adapt to a completely different style, a lot more compressed at Chelsea. Leipzig were hitting people on the break and using sort of the flanks and the wings a bit more. So people seem to forget that he has had to actually adapt his whole style of play there. So maybe needs another season to show what he can do, but does look very devoid of confidence. And it's no surprise to see him linked with a new striker. Lukaku, that seems to be the main man at the top of their list. £105 million I've read as an asking price, although I was reading today that goal.com, because obviously we've spoken a bit about Inter's financial problems, apparently they're guessing a £170 million loan this week from a unnamed US investor. But the club still needs to reduce their operating costs by 15%. Apparently they're asking the players to take like pay cuts. They're having to, because they won the league, they're suddenly having to pay out all these bonus payments as well, which is proving to be a bit of a nightmare for the entire hierarchy. I think sort of a double-edged sword winning the league for them. But yeah, it still looks like they'll have to sell a player. What do you reckon about Lukaku back at Chelsea? Is that something you'd like to see?
Well, firstly, shout out Lukaku, aka Michael Buffer, for organising that fight between Conte and Lautaro Martinez last week at the Inter training ground. I thought that was a great video. I loved that. You know, having it all out after Conte and Lautaro Martinez had a little falling out during the Roma game, which just goes to show the mentality of Conte as well. They completely fell out in the Roma game, despite the fact they'd already had the Scudetto, you know, sewn up, which just, you know, goes to show that Conte will fight with himself if it needs be. But yeah, Romelu Lukaku back to Chelsea. I'm sure he'd jump at the chance, but he's also very happy in Italy, and I feel like he's performed so exceptionally well at Inter Milan. It's going to take a monster bid to get that done. I think Chelsea probably aren't going to spend over £100 million on a striker this year. I just can't really see it because they're looking at a centre-back as well. They obviously need to sell quite a few players, as I mentioned earlier. I don't think they're going to spend over £100 million on a player this summer. And Haaland, continually linked as well with Chelsea, with Man City. Personally, I can't see him leaving this summer. I think his recent form has been so good. Dortmund have now won the Pokal, which Haaland played a massive part in. They've secured Champions League football as well. I think Sancho's probably going to leave. I'm sort of 65% sure on that, maybe going up to 70% on that. But I can't see Haaland leaving. The only thing is, for a club like Chelsea, next summer everyone knows about Haaland's release clause. £75 million is what we've got. Is what we believe at the moment. So they're basically backing themselves, if they don't go in for Haaland this year, they're basically backing themselves to be able to put together a more persuasive package than, your Man Cities, your Real Madrids, your PSGs, your Man Uniteds next summer, which is a little bit of a risk because Chelsea, despite the results at the weekend, if they finish in the Champions League, maybe even win the Champions League final, there's still a good chance of that. They might be more attractive to Haaland this summer than next summer, especially if Chelsea end up not signing Haaland this summer and getting in another striker. So they're basically weighing up, pay an extra, £50 million this summer, or back themselves to, put together the best bid for him next summer. So it's quite difficult to know what Chelsea will end up doing. Obviously, there's talk about Harry Kane leaving as well. I can't see him going to Chelsea, but to City maybe. It's apparently, Pep Guardiola has eyed him up for a number of years. Feels like his performances this year at Spurs deserve to be in the Champions League. I think it's only Lewandowski and Messi have got more goal contributions in the whole of Europe. So he's been in phenomenal form. I just think it's going to be so difficult for a £100 million signing to happen this year, unless Roman Abramovich or the City group just, get that wallet open and smack down some state cash.
Yeah. Harry Kane's interesting. I was Talksport would say, reporting that there could be some kind of clause in his contract where, because he hasn't won any more trophies or silverware at Tottenham, they may have kind of some agreement to let him go for a bit less than sort of suddenly the 150 million that he's being mooted for. But yeah, I completely agree with you. He's still only 27 as well. I think people seem to be writing off Harry Kane as a bit older than he actually is. 27, still coming into the best years of his career. There's this big obsession with making sure you only get a striker who's sort of a player 23, 24 age, but you can't deny Harry Kane's just unbelievable ability. For me, he's the player of the season in the Premier League. I think I'm not sure whether or not he's in sort of the main running for that, but if you look at his sort of goals and assists rate this year, he's just been absolutely outstanding for a Tottenham side, which honestly, where would they be without him? Yeah. I think I'd love to see him go to City more, just because I think he deserves it. Do you know what I mean? I'd love to hope that's true. And if City were to go for a forwards, I think he is the one that they should really be targeting, unless they're serious, once you said about Haaland. Because the other, I read there's a 4-man shortlist that City have got. The other two players that feature on that are Lautaro Martinez, as you said, involved in that crunch match against Conte last week as well. He had to deny reports from Marca that he wants to move to Atletico Madrid. That's been disproven. But 90 Min's claim he's potentially available for less than £70 million. With Liverpool also interested. He's 23 years old, 18 goals in all competitions. I just want to talk about Lautaro Martinez quickly, because we have obviously discussed him, not in recent continental clubs, but certainly last year. I'm not sold on him as the sort of the future of striking. I don't think his goal scoring record is particularly impressive. I think he's a great forward, and I think he complements Lukaku excellently. I'm not sold on him as the guy to go into City and replace Aguero in the long term. Certainly if Gabriel Jesus is struggling as well, I don't think that he's the kind of 25 plus man per season target that City should be targeting. I mean, what do you agree or do you disagree? Am I just being
I tend to agree. I think this year he's missed some really, really easy opportunities. I mean, you say 18 goals in all competitions. Going off some of the chances these that he's missed, I don't actually have his expected goals in front of me, but I think that should be closer to 25. He just doesn't have that lethal killer instinct just yet. But obviously at 23, there's still plenty of room for development. But you're not getting a Kane, Lukaku, Haaland level striker for me just yet. You're getting someone with room to develop, particularly in front of goal. But yeah, he does seem to have the raw materials in terms of his outside of the box, his link-up play, his off-the-ball running. Just you want a bit more killer instinct, I think, for that price.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see another year at Inter. Let's see what they can do in the Champions League. The other name on that shortlist, Andre Silva. Very interesting one, actually. If we look at the sort of options we've got here, this is the cost-effective option of the group. Now, Eintracht Frankfurt won't be playing Champions League football next year. They've had a bit of a stinker, haven't they? 3 losses and 1 draw in their last 5. Completely capitulated. Let Borussia Dortmund back into it, which goes back to what we were saying about Haaland. Why would they let him go now? They've got Champions League football. Apparently, it might take over 130 million from them to even tempt him to leave. But for Andre Silva, 27 goals in the Bundesliga this season. That is actually nuts, isn't it? With 5 assists as well. Very quick and active in the box. 3.5 shots per 90. 0.5 goals per shot, which I think is really important there. For me, I think it's time for him to leave Eintracht. I think he's certainly ready for a move. It's been a great kind of resurrection for him over in Germany. And Sky Germany are linking him with a move to Atletico, which is quite an interesting decision. Doesn't look like they're going to sign Moussa Dembele permanently. So they could be looking to use that kind of funds elsewhere. And Andre Silva could be interesting. I'd like to see if City would sort of challenge for that as well. He's only 25 years old. Real Madrid might be interested with a swap deal of Luka Jovic, but apparently Jovic's wages are just simply too much for Eintracht to deal with. Andre Silva to City, that's the kind of more niche and interesting transfer. If you look at the Ferran Torres transfer, which went ahead, that's the kind of transfer I think I'd actually really like to see. I don't know what you think about that one.
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit of a shame on Eintracht. Like, they've got quite a good thing going with him and Filip Kostic and Daichi Kamada as well. I don't know. I just don't like always just touting players for moves as soon as they have an exceptional season. Yeah. But, you know, Andre Silva, he's done great this year. I think he's very strong in the air. You know, slightly surprising for a guy who's not actually massive. Obviously had a difficult year or two at AC Milan, then went out on loan, sort of rekindled some form, and it's just finally landed at Eintracht Frankfurt, and he started doing really, really well. But yeah, if you want a striker this year, a number 9 who's coming off the back of a great year, who's probably coming in with a lot of confidence, who's got a good chance of starting and playing regularly for Portugal at the Euros, where I think they could do exceptionally well despite being drawn in a group with France and Germany, then Andre Silva's probably a man. I think there's reports of him about being available for about £40 million. So if you want a stopgap signing for a year before you target, you know, your Haalands or Mbappes when the market recovers and when your finances recover, maybe Andre Silva's your guy.
Yeah, love that. All right, we did it for the other two. We'll do it for this as well. City. Who would you like to see City replace Aguero with?
I mean, I'd love to see them replace him with Haaland, to be honest. I want to see him in the Premier League at some stage, but I don't see that happening. I'm kind of with you. I think Harry Kane to Man City would be a lot of fun. And yeah, the sort of move that he deserves. I kind of want him to stay in the Premier League so he ends up breaking the Premier League goal scoring record from Alan Shearer. And I don't think he's going to get a move abroad anytime soon with the club's finances in such peril. So it feels like it's Man City or Man United, and out of those two, you clearly go to Man City. So yeah, Harry Kane to Man City, why not?
All right, yeah, Chelsea. It is difficult. I don't think Haaland wants to move to Chelsea. I just don't see it. What I love about
they're already signing Ivan Toney, as I told you.
Oh yeah, yes. I forgot about that breaking piece of news. But I love that, Chester. I mean, if that is true. What I love about Haaland is how much he seems to just love Dortmund. Even though that his agent's been flying around to all these different clubs, so that bizarre kind of international road trip which Mino Raiola and his dad went on. But I love the fact that Haaland's just the levels of excitement he seems to emit on the pitch, even when he's in the stands. I think he's just first class. I agree. I'd love to see him there. Although I would like to see Lukaku back in with Chelsea, maybe prove the doubters wrong. They're so weird that he didn't even score once in his time there. But anyway, all right, those are our takes on the most prevalent, I'd say, transfer rumours out there at the moment. Dougie, thank you very much for joining me on Extra Time today. If our viewers are interested, what else should they go and check out right now?
Why don't you go check out ERU, which dropped on Eurofootball Daily on Monday, where we talked about Max Allegri potentially replacing Zinedine Zidane, with rumours linking Zidane with Juventus. So it could be a little bit of action going on at the Bernabeu in the managerial hot seat. Why don't you go check out Friday's Continental Club on Eurofootball Daily as well, where we talked about players currently wasted at their clubs with myself, Henry and McCubbs.
Brilliant, love that. Also, a little shout out. We've released 2 really interesting explained videos this weekend. One on how like Moneyball is influencing Barnsley and Brentford, and the other looking at how multi-club ownership is kind of becoming a bigger thing within football. Really interesting to see like the comments people against it. It's more just like a look at why clubs are operating that model. So go check that out. Narrated by me. So what more could you possibly want for a Monday afternoon? But anyway, brilliant. Thank you so much, Dougie, and thank you everyone for listening. Whether or not you're on Spotify or any other kind of streaming platform at home or watching on YouTube, make sure you're liked and subscribed to the channel and keep supporting the Extra Time podcast. Anyway, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.